In 2015, Mexican authorities discovered something impossible, a perfectly engineered tunnel stretching for nearly a mile under their most secure prison. But this wasn't just any tunnel. Inside, they found a ventilation system that rivaled modern mines, electrical wiring that could power a small neighborhood, and a custom-modified motorcycle mounted on rails. The man behind it? A drug lord who controlled an empire worth $14 billion, more than the GDP of many countries. This is the story of how El Chapo orchestrated the most elaborate prison breaks in history, and why even the world's most secure prison might not be enough to hold him. But before we reveal how he pulled off these incredible escapes, you'll want to subscribe, because what happens next changed prison security forever. To understand how one man could break out of Mexico's most secure prisons, we first need to understand who Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán really was. Standing at just 5 feet 6 inches, earning him the nickname El Chapo or Shorty, this man from humble beginnings built the largest drug trafficking operation the world had ever seen. Think about these numbers. By the 1990s, the Sinaloa cartel controlled up to 60% of Mexico's drug trade. They had operations in over 50 countries. Their annual revenue? Over $3 billion, more than many Fortune 500 companies. But unlike corporate CEOs, El Chapo's business meetings often ended in bloodshed. In 1993, after years of evading capture, Mexican authorities finally caught up with him. Their solution? Puente Grande prison, a fortress that seemed impossible to escape. Picture this: 2 guards for every single inmate. Walls reinforced with steel so strong it could stop an armored vehicle. Watchtowers every few hundred feet, manned by guards carrying military-grade weapons. Even the road leading to the prison was fortified with checkpoints that would make airports look relaxed. But here's what most people don't know. From inside his cell, El Chapo wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. Through an intricate network of corrupt officials, led by Deputy Chief of Security Damaso Lopez, he turned his prison cell into something unprecedented, a command center for the world's largest drug empire. The level of corruption was staggering. Every month, millions in bribes flowed through the prison like water. El Chapo had everything he wanted: phones, luxury food, expensive alcohol, even conjugal visits that lasted for days. His 2 wives and various mistresses came and went as they pleased. The prison wasn't containing El Chapo, it was protecting him. But that's not even the most shocking part. From behind those supposedly secure walls, El Chapo revolutionized drug trafficking. He hired engineers, architects, and specialists to develop an unprecedented network of tunnels. These weren't crude holes in the ground. We're talking about sophisticated passages with ventilation systems, electric lighting, and even rail systems. His empire wasn't just surviving, it was growing bigger than ever. Then in 2001, everything changed. The Mexican Supreme Court was considering a new law that would allow criminal extradition to America. For El Chapo, this wasn't just bad news, it was a death sentence for his empire. He knew he had to act fast. On January 19, 2001, El Chapo put into action one of the most daring prison escapes ever attempted. With the help of a prison worker named Chito and his trusted ally Damaso, he orchestrated what seemed like an insultingly simple plan. But sometimes the simplest plans are the most brilliant. Think about this. How do you smuggle the world's most notorious drug lord out of a maximum security prison? El Chapo's answer? A laundry cart. Yes, you heard that right. The man who controlled billions in drug money chose to escape in a cart used for dirty clothes. But here's where it almost went wrong. At a security checkpoint, while Chito was talking to a guard, the cart began rolling backward on its own, El Chapo's weight pushing it down the slight incline. One crash, one noise, and everything would be over. Decades of empire building would end because of a faulty wheel on a laundry cart. But Chito managed to catch it just in time, his heart probably pounding as loud as El Chapo's. What happened next was like something out of a Hollywood movie. Multiple car switches, a police escort, but not to arrest him. Those police cars? They were protecting him. El Chapo had so many officers on his payroll that corrupt cops actually formed a protective convoy around him, shielding him from legitimate law enforcement. Think about that level of corruption. Dozens of police officers, in uniform, using their patrol cars to help the world's most wanted man escape. For the next 13 years, El Chapo's empire reached heights that even Pablo Escobar would have envied. The Sinaloa cartel became the largest drug trafficking organization in history. They weren't just smuggling drugs, they were innovating. Tunnels under the US border, submarines in the Pacific, even drones before most people knew what drones were. But in 2014, Mexican special forces finally caught up with him. This time, they sent him to Altiplano prison, considered the most secure facility in Mexico. The prison was a technological fortress. Motion sensors, reinforced concrete walls, 24-hour surveillance. Every inch of every cell was monitored, except for one small blind spot behind a shower wall. And that's where El Chapo's genius revealed itself again. Somehow, he managed to smuggle in a GPS watch. But he didn't use it to track his location. He used it to give his men the exact coordinates they needed. For months, they worked in secret, digging a tunnel that would put engineering companies to shame. Let me paint you a picture of this tunnel. Nearly a mile long, but perfectly straight, hitting its target with laser precision. Professional-grade ventilation systems kept fresh air flowing. Electric lighting illuminated the entire length. But the masterpiece? A custom-modified motorcycle mounted on rails, designed to quickly transport El Chapo to freedom. Originally planned for July 4th, a deliberate insult to America, the escape had to be delayed a week. But on July 11th, 2015, El Chapo made his move. While watching TV to mask any sounds, he slipped into his shower, the only blind spot in his cell's surveillance system. Below, that motorcycle-powered cart waited to whisk him away through the tunnel that had taken months to build. The escape triggered the largest manhunt in Mexican history. But El Chapo's freedom wouldn't last. 6 months later, in January 2016, authorities tracked him to a safe house in Los Mochis. After a fierce gunfight that left 5 of his men dead, El Chapo escaped again, this time through a tunnel behind a mirror. It seemed like he had 9 lives, but his luck had finally run out. 20 kilometers down the road, federal police caught him trying to steal a car. Even then, facing capture, El Chapo's first instinct was to bribe his way out. When that failed, he smiled and told the officers they'd regret not taking his money. He thought his men were coming to rescue him. Instead, he watched as Mexican special forces surrounded the motel where he was being held. The next few hours were crucial. El Chapo's men were mobilizing. The corrupt police he had on his payroll were racing to the scene. But this time, something was different. The federal officers who caught him weren't corrupt. They were part of a new generation of Mexican law enforcement, determined to end the reign of the cartels. In January 2017, Mexico had finally had enough. Without warning, without announcement, El Chapo was extradited to the United States. Landing in New York, the man who had built a $14 billion empire asked through tears, "Where am I?" His trial revealed the true scope of his empire. Over 50 witnesses testified. They spoke of submarines carrying cocaine, of trains modified to hide drugs, of tunnels equipped with electric rail cars. They revealed an empire that shipped more than 200 tons of cocaine into the United States. The numbers were staggering: $14 billion in profits, over 100,000 people on his payroll, bribes that would make a Wall Street banker blush. Today, El Chapo spends 23 hours a day in a cell at ADX Florence, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. His world has shrunk from controlling entire states to a 7 by 12-foot concrete box. The man who once had armies at his command now has to ask permission to speak to guards. No one has ever escaped from this supermax prison, but perhaps the real question isn't whether he can escape again. The question is, how many more El Chapos are out there, waiting to write their own chapter in criminal history? In Mexico, they say that when one cartel leader falls, 3 more rise to take his place. El Chapo's story isn't just about the escapes. It's about how one man exposed the vulnerabilities in even the world's most secure systems. His empire may be gone, but somewhere in his tiny cell in Colorado, El Chapo still holds one last secret: the location of his estimated $12.6 billion in hidden wealth. Some say he still runs his empire from behind those concrete walls. Others say his power died the moment he touched American soil. But one thing's for certain: El Chapo's legacy changed the face of both drug trafficking and prison security forever. What do you think? Could anyone ever break out of America's Supermax prison? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more incredible true crime stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.